Welcome to I Am Growth and Personal Development. Today we're going to talk about an author and spiritual teacher who has transformed the lives of millions of people around the world. Eckhart Tolle. If you've ever felt that stress, anxiety, or worry control you, this video is for you. We're going to explore some of Tolle's most powerful teachings, which invite us to connect with our essential being and live in the present moment. Without further ado, let's begin discovering how we can transform our lives with his teachings. The power of now. One of the central ideas in Eckhart Tolle's work is the importance of living in the now. Tolle tells us that the human mind tends to always be in the past or in the future. We live obsessed with what has already happened, things we cannot change, or worrying about what might happen, but in most cases, never does. This cycle pulls us away from the reality of the present, which is the only moment when we are truly alive. Tolle explains that suffering and anxiety arise when we can't be present. Have you ever felt trapped in thoughts about something that happened days or weeks ago? That's what our mind does. It drags us out of the present moment. Tolle invites us to observe our thoughts without identifying with them. He encourages us to ask ourselves, who am I without these thoughts? By doing so, we can discover a new dimension of consciousness that is always available to us, a consciousness that is connected with the now. The simple act of observing the present moment without judging it or trying to change it can lead us to a deep inner peace. The present moment is the only thing that truly exists, and by accepting this, we begin to experience life with greater clarity and depth. The ego and its impact on our lives. In his works, Tolle delves into the concept of the ego, that part of our psyche that identifies with the body, mind, and external circumstances. According to Tolle, the ego is the main source of suffering in the world. He tells us that the ego always seeks to be separate from others and is always in a constant search for validation, power, and control. The ego feeds on the idea that we are something separate from the whole, something that needs to struggle to survive. When we live from the ego, we see ourselves as victims of our circumstances and believe that life is something we need to control in order to feel safe and happy. But the truth is that, by identifying with the ego, we lose our connection to our essential being, which is eternal, peaceful, and full of love. Tolle encourages us to detach from the identity of the ego, to recognize it when it arises, and to not identify with the thoughts and emotions it causes. For example, if we feel anger or fear, we can ask ourselves, who is feeling this? And by observing that emotion without identifying with it, we realize that we are the observer, not the emotion itself. The power of acceptance and surrender. One of the most liberating concepts in Tolle's teachings is the idea of accepting the moment as it is. This doesn't mean resigning ourselves or surrendering to adversity, but rather allowing ourselves to be present with what is, without fighting against reality. The act of accepting what happens in the present frees us from the resistance that fuels suffering. Tolle says that resistance to the present moment is what causes all pain and conflict. When we resist the circumstances, we create an inner struggle that wears us down. Acceptance doesn't mean agreeing with everything that happens, but by accepting it, we release the energy we use to fight and resist. For example, if you're going through a tough time, instead of denying or rejecting it, you can start by accepting it. This doesn't mean staying in the situation, but it means you stop mentally fighting against it. By doing so, you open yourself to new possibilities and solutions, awakening and the essential being. Tolle invites us to connect with our essential being, that part of us that is beyond the mind and ego. This being is our pure consciousness, our presence. According to Tolle, when we are deeply connected with our being, we experience a deep peace that does not depend on external circumstances. This essential being is our natural state, but due to the noise of the mind and the distractions of the ego, we often lose touch with it. Awakening to this inner being is a process that requires mindfulness and constant presence. By doing so, we begin to see the world in a new way, free from the filters of the ego and the expectations of the past or future. In his book, The Power of Now, Tolle gives us a simple yet powerful practice to connect with our being, observing our breath. When we pay attention to our breath, we focus on the present moment, and our mind starts to calm down. It's an effective way to step out of the mind and into pure presence. A New Earth, the collective awakening. In his work, A New Earth, Tolle takes the concept of awakening beyond the individual. He speaks of a collective awakening that is necessary to transform humanity. Tolle tells us that we are living in a time of global crisis, where humanity is more divided than ever. The ego has created separation, conflict, and suffering in the world. However, Tolle believes that the individual awakening of each person can be the catalyst for global change. By transcending the ego and living in the present, we can create a new earth, a world based on peace, compassion, and cooperation. Tolle sees this awakening as a spiritual evolution of humanity, where people connect with their essential being and leave behind the old thought patterns that separate us. Conclusion: the teachings of Eckhart Tolle show us that true peace and freedom are not found in the future or the past, but in the now. By freeing ourselves from the ego and living in the present moment, we can experience a fuller, more serene, and loving life. If you feel trapped by your thoughts, emotions, or circumstances, remember that you always have the ability to return to the present moment and connect with your essential being. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Eckhart Tolle's teachings. If any of these ideas have resonated with you, I invite you to dive deeper into his books and start practicing presence and acceptance in your daily life. Peace is not something you must search for. It is something that is already inside of you. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share with those who may also find value in these words. See you in the next video.